G'day, Alan here. Welcome back to my workshop. Today I want to get back onto the work I was doing with this 3-jaw chuck. You might have seen in a previous video I've drilled the holes in the face here for these spacer blocks, and that gave me some extra capability here. And I also made this backstop piece to fit in there. So that's all worked out well. But what I want to do now is make I think they call them a chuck spider, a piece to fit in here, which will be screw fixed onto this innermost row of holes, fit around the chuck jaws and provide extra facility for holding work, smaller work in the middle of the chuck. To do it, I'm going to well, I need a piece of round steel that's about 130 diameter, and if I had a piece of 130 diameter bar, I suppose I could hack it off that, but I don't, and steel is very expensive these days, so I want to use what I've got. And what I've got is a piece of 150 by 150 10mm thick plate, so I want to cut my round disc out of that, and I'll do that with trapaining. So that means the 4-jaw chuck and making a trapaining tool. So better get started. Okay, so first thing is to take the 3-jaw off and put the 4-jaw on. And to make that easier, I'll knock this up. If you watched the previous video, you saw me struggle with this and nearly drop it. So I'll knock this up. I've got a couple of little clips here showing how I made it. It's pretty simple, but there are a couple of points that I bring out in the clips, so let's have a quick squiz at those. So construction of this thing's pretty obvious. It's a bit of square tube with a 45-degree weld to another bit. Actually, this is 2 bits of, because I only had a couple of short bits of scrap welded together, and a 5/8 7-inch diameter bolt. So I cleaned it up and machined the head round, and this creates a step feature here which hooks under the back of the jaws. So the jaws grab hold of this bit here, and it allows the chuck to rotate on that, which makes it easier to fit the chuck, as you'll see in a bit. Because this is 2mm thick tube, and there's quite a high stress point, it's probably over engineered, but I made up a piece of 3mm strap which is just folded around and welded on. So this here is actually going through a 5mm thickness here and 5mm thickness there. As I say, probably over-engineered, but if you're going to do something, you might as well do it properly. So, thing to do now. Oh, and the design detail here. This comes through as a stud to a hole in the back here, and it was just V'd out round, bit of weld prep, welded in, and I've just faced it off. So now I'll be welding this on there. The idea is being to have one lift point for when the chuck is laying on its back, and another lift point for when the chuck is in the vertical plane, ready to go on the face or ready to go on the lathe spindle. So next thing is to weld that on there and then make that trivial thing. So let's have a look when it's finished. Okay, with this tab welded on, next thing is to find the centre of gravity for this arrangement, and I think right there it's pretty damn close, so I think we'll be going with that. So what I've got to do now is take a measurement and decide what sort of an ear to weld on there to pick up that line. So I'll bring you back when I've done that. Okay, so to install this, we'll just drop him in there. Oops. I don't need to do that up tight, so that's fine. Just hook up the oops. Okay, so I've got this installed, and we'll loosen up I've done all but one of the dowel pins to make it easy. Right. Take a bit more weight. There we go. So we get that out of the way and wheel the 4-jaw in. And pick him up from here. So this will be going over to the milling machine to hold my piece of plate while I mark out the cutouts for the jaws. Okay, with this hanging on its hook, it's now fairly easy to get him landed on there. I can sit there and wait until we're ready to start the operations on the milling machine. Okay, so I've got the 4-jaw mounted, and I've got my piece of 150 by 150 plate in the chuck. Haven't set it up yet, but the circle, or the piece I want to cut out of it, would mean I was cutting very close to these edges, and I wasn't happy about that. So I've just tacked on these 4 bits of scrap. They're just bits of 10mm square bar. So when I tighten the chuck jaws up, it won't create a situation that when the trepanning tool comes through close to this edge, it won't all collapse and fall apart. So that's what's going on there. If I had a bigger piece of plate, I wouldn't have needed to do that. The other thing I want to try to do, these are little brass identity discs. I just want to use them as shims. I want to get one behind each jaw to give me a bit of a space on the back to run the trapaining tool out into. I'm not sure how much of a fiddle it's going to be getting them in place, but we'll give it a go. Okay, so I stuck those 4 brass discs on with a dab of grease. We'll see if that works for me. Let's see if we can get lined up again. Okay, so we're quite a long way from the centre, so let's start getting ourselves sorted. So I've got to move the plate in that direction. Wind him over a bit there. Let's see if we've got some slack here. Not much. So we'll loosen it off here. Let's see what we've got. Yeah, that's pretty close. Alright, last check all around. Alright, well I think I might put a dial gauge on the face of that and see what story it's telling. Okay, well, it's a 10,000ths run out, but considering that's just a bit of plate that hasn't been machined or anything, I think that's quite okay. I will be facing off both sides of this after I've reduced it to a disc. So I can live with that, that's fine. So I think we're good to go. Let's get into the trapaining. Okay, trapaining, it's sort of a bit like using a parting tool but into the face of a work rather than coming in from the side. And as you can see, if you come into a circle like that, you'll automatically get side clearance on the inside of the cutting tool, but you'll need a lot of side clearance on the outside because of it'll be interfering with the curve here. So I want to grind a trapaining tool that's good for about 100mm diameter out, and you can do this grinding just by trial and error, but I thought it'd be a bit of fun just to do the maths on it, and it turns out it's quite simple. I won't bore you with all of that, but it's basically Pythagoras' theorem. The square on the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares on the opposite 2 sides. When you run that through, in this case, I want to use a piece of tool steel that's 12.7 thick, and the radius that I would have on the outside of that hole is 52mm. So when you run it through, you find that the side clearance that you need here is about 2mm, just running it through. And if you work with 2mm, you find that this needs to be about 9 degrees. So that made it easy then to go over to my grinding machine and grind up such a tool with 9 degrees side clearance this side, next to nothing on that side. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so I'm going to make the trapaining tool out of this piece of 1/2 inch square tool steel. It was a special tool somewhere in its life, God knows where. You can see in its last use it had a nasty accident. So we'll start off by cutting that off square and then cutting in to form our 4mm wide blade for a depth of about 12mm. So that's the next step. Anyway, let's get rid of the bulk of the dacky bit. Right, we'll clean that end up on the grinder. Alright, well, let's clean that end up well enough, I think, for the next step. So go mark it out and work out how to cut it out. Okay, so I've got the digital angle meter set on my tool sharpening jig. It's got it set for about 9 degrees, which should give me the required clearance on the bottom outside face of the trapaining tool. This isn't an exact, doesn't need to be an exact science. 9 degrees will be fine. I mean, I was just hoping to create a tool which will be good from a diameter of 100mm outwards. And if I'm 4mm wide on top of the tool and about 2mm wide on the bottom, I think that should work out just fine. So that's what we're going to shoot for. Okay, let's see how we go. So I'll try to give you a look at how things are progressing. Yeah, that seems to be coming along nicely. I'll do a bit more and have to clean the wheel again, I guess. Okay, so that has indeed taken a big piece. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that. I'll show you some. I'll show you on the bench later, but that has given me the 2mm undercut that I was looking for. Anyway, so now I have to work out how to notch out this large piece here. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that, but there was a very large amount of material to grind out to form the cutting end, because I only wanted to be 4mm wide. So I roughed all that out on the bench grinder. It's just a fast way to do it. So I'm going to mount this in here now and get my final angles set. So I'm going to start by doing the top rake. So we'll have to set this back to level. I want to get it to level this way, which it is. Okay, so I've set up for 10 degrees of top rake, but I'll only put that on a short distance in from the tip, and it's just an experiment to see if it will act as a chip breaker. I don't know whether that idea will work or not. I guess we'll find out. So looking with a mirror, I can see I need to go a bit further. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Then I've just got to do the front rake. Okay, so now we've got 5 degrees of front rake on that front vertical face. So I roughed it out on the bench grinder, so we're going to just tidy it up a bit. I'll just see how that's going. Oh, quite nicely actually. I must have been pretty close with my roughing out. Could go a little bit more. Yeah, let me just go a couple of strokes more. Oh, I can call that done. And I think we've finished grinding. We're just left with doing the hut. Oh, damn! keep forgetting these things get bloody hot. Oh. Just dunk it in the water bucket. Right. So I don't know how well I'll be able to see that, but maybe that angle. Anyway, so I think that's finished doing the grinding. Just got to touch it up with the diamond stone and test it out. It's cutting alright, but I think I might slow it down a little bit. We're on 185, let's come back to 120. And there we have it. And there we go. Okay, so now I've got my material for the thing I actually want to make. 130 diameter, 10 thick disc. The idea is to put a 3-hole pattern in here, which will engage with this inner ring of 3 tapped holes, and then I'll secure that. So then the next thing will be to machine cutouts in here that follow the jaw tracks. And because I'll be creating a lot of swarf, I'm going to pull the chuck apart so I can take the scroll out and make sure it's clean afterwards. So next thing is to turn it over and pull the chuck apart. So pulling it apart means taking these 6 screws out and removing this backing plate. Now, to make sure it goes back in the same orientation, someone has already put an alignment mark there, otherwise I would have made one. So let's see how tight these screws are. I don't think they can be horribly tight because I have had this apart once before. Just back you out a little bit. Oh yeah. Now I can't remember how tight this piece is. We'll find out, I guess. pretty tight. Let's feel it. Actually got some threaded holes here. Maybe I can hang it from that and then tap that down. I might get rigged up to do that. Okay, so I've cobbled this up from various bits and pieces lying around the place, bits of pulleys and other things, because I want to be able to lift this up with control, having reassembly in mind. So let's see how we get on. Just take the weight here. Give this piece a tap and see if it wants to fall off. It's not looking very keen on the idea, is it? Well, actually, if I put a screw bolt in there and tap those, that would perhaps be a way of getting some separation anxiety happening. Builders next door again, sorry about that. Let's see how we get on with this. There's nothing here. Yeah, there is maybe a little bit of movement. Yes, it is starting to separate. Yeah, there we go. Alright, let's not get carried away here. Something holding it up. Oh, bolts, of course. Goose. Right. Now we should be off. Oops. Wrong way. Oh, God. Right. You can just hang around over there. Right. Actually, we'll just give you a bit of a closer look in there. You can see there's a lot of small swarf and so on, so it's going to benefit from having that cleaned out. And it's starting to rain, so apologies for that as well. Now we'll see if we can get this scroll out. Right, let's turn it upside down and see if it just folds out. Could we be that lucky? A gentle tap. There we go. She's out. So I can lift that off the scroll. Oh, it says that easily enough. Oh. There we go. Right. Oh, well, there's still. Oh, you can see all the dirt a bit more clearly now, maybe. Anyway, there's still quite a bit of weight in this thing. Let's get this scroll out the way for a moment. Okay, that's clean enough for now, so I can set myself up now to do the machining on that piece of plate that I've trepaned. Right, so when I thought about how I was going to do this, I realised that once I've got the chuck on the table, I'll need to rotate it through from an initial setup to two other positions. So I thought, well, the rotary table's the way to go. But this bugger's heavy, so I thought I'd better get some help. There we go. Safely landed. Alright, I'll bring you back when I've got it all set up. Okay, so we're all set up to drill some holes now. So I centered the rotary table under the quill, and I centered the body of the 3-jaw chuck also under that, and aligned it so that the jaw cutout here, or the jaw guideway here, is in line with the x-axis. So the reason I've done all that is so that when I've finished drilling the holes here and bolt this thing to the chuck face, I know I'm indexed, so I know where to run in cutting the slot for the jaw, and I can use the rotary table to rotate 120 degrees and bring the next one also in line with the x-axis. That's the thinking anyway. I didn't need to do that just to drill the holes in this, but after I've drilled them I want to bolt them to that, and if this isn't in the right place, well anyway, that's my thinking. So I've done I've set the DRO up to mark the position of the 3 holes. I just did a dummy run checking that they were going to land where they were supposed to land, and the diameter is 110, which is what I used when I put the holes in the chuck face. So fingers crossed that's all going to work for me. So off we go, I guess. Right. Okay, so now we move to the next hole. So it's actually hole number 2 in this case, or hole number 1 actually. Let's go back to hole 1. There we go. We're going clockwise. Why not? Oops, overshot. Right, and Y. So that's got 3 holes, hopefully in the right place and the right size. Just going to do a counter boring exercise to make room for the heads of the screws. Right, time for a clean up and see if it actually fits the hole pattern that's in the chuck face. Fingers crossed. These little toe clamps, I don't know how to knock them up for this job. Might come in useful for something else afterwards, I guess. Right. I've got to clean out the back of these holes. I'm just going to do that. Right, and we get the homework marked. Well, one line's up. Let's have a look here. Pinch these short ones from here. That's the one that lines up. Oh, that one lines up too, that's pretty good. Huh. 3 out of 3. Well, pretty happy about that. So what I'll do now is cut the slots in for the jaws, and I'll be doing them one at a time. And because I've taken the scroll out, it'll be easy sliding the jaws in and out to check on progress. Anyway, step one's complete. Happy. Okay, so I want to face this disc off both sides, and of course my big lathe's out of action at the moment, or at least the chuck is. So I thought this is a job I could do on my Hercus. I don't think you've seen this lathe before. I don't think I don't use it that much, but I bought it in the late 70s, and I think it was made in about the early mid 60s, so it was 10-15 years old when I got it, but it was in excellent shape and I've really looked after it. So it's a great little machine. Of course, it's all set up with imperial things and doesn't have a DRO, which is the main reason I tend not to use it very much. But the ways are in really good condition, and yeah, it was never abused. It didn't come out of a school, and it was actually the rather deluxe model in that it's a long bed with roller bearings, the ARL model. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get this disc faced. Well, that I reckon that worked out pretty well. I mean, it's obviously a pretty old machine, but that surface finish is actually probably better than I was going to get off the newer lathe, because old though this one is, the bearings and the bed are in very good shape. So that was a really top class finish, and the disc didn't completely clean up, so you can see at the bottom there's a patch that's just not quite cleaned up, but around the holes it's cleaned up properly, so I think that's going to be just fine. Okay, well, I'm still not particularly confident about this or exactly sure what the best way to do this is, but I've got to get off the fence and stop what ifing. So I've made up a couple of things like this. There's a left hand and a right hand one, which will allow me to extend the line of the jaw track across my disc. So that's going to let me get one side, and now I use the left hand one to get the other side. And then of course there's a question of how far towards the middle do I go. I could get tangled up with worrying about curves, but basically I want the piece in the middle to be about 20 diameter, something like that. So if I just use a square here, and can't talk with that in my mouth, set said square to be 10 from the centre. That's going to give me a pretty useful sort of a guideline. So I think I'll give myself that as a line. Right, let's give myself a scribe line there. And of course, while I'm there, we'll go out to meet it. And we'll switch over to the left hand one, which you won't be able to see. Which will let me scribe the other side. Can't see it myself. Oh, here we go. Alright. Okay, well that's created one target. Oh, I've had a cup of tea and a lie down after that. I've committed myself. I've got to go now. Okay, so the other piece of marking out I needed was to get the shape of the inboard end of the jaw. So I've set that on my 10mm mark and this on the side. So if I hold that down, I should be able to mark those two corners, or those angled pieces. I'm hoping. Okay, let me see what I'm doing around the other side. I have to give it my best shot. My head's going to get in the way, sorry about that. Alright. Yep, so that has transferred, you won't be able to see it, but that has actually transferred the shape. So that can guide my milling efforts. So the plan, if I can call it that I'm working towards, is a combination of using the DRO, setting a 0 there, going that way, and just making sure I don't do anything stupid, because I've got the guidelines there to help save me from myself. Okay, so now I've got to select a milling cutter. My plan is to use, I don't know, perhaps an 8mm, something like that, to go up each side. Then I'll have to cut across there to get rid of that piece, and then I can clean it out using sliding the jaw in and sort of sneak up on it a little bit. We'll see how well that works out. Let's just see how we're going here. It's cutting nicely enough. I've got a 3mm depth of cut here. A bit of silence, so let's see how wide that trench is. It should be 27. Oh well, pretty happy with that. Okay, as you can see, we've made a bit of progress. Get this piece out the way before it can break off in an uncontrolled fashion and cause me grief. God knows what sort of damage it could do. Come on. Right. Okay, well, we'll let the cut finish now. Alright, I guess it's time for the first trial with the jaw to see if we're anywhere near the thickness, the width of opening that we need. There's all sorts of burrs and goodness knows what here, so anyway, let's blow some of this out of the way so we can give it a bit of a try. Alright, stand by for nothing much. That's a bit too tight. Actually, why is that so tight even in there? Alright, well, at least I haven't gone oversize. So, Let's do some detail measuring and work out how much to trim off. Okie dokie. Let's see if we've got the fit we were looking for. Rest here, I guess. Right, now get in there. Right. Okay. Well, that's pretty good. Well, you can't see it very well, but the that fit is actually exactly what I was shooting for. Another rag. Let's see if I can give you a better look. Show you this fit. Okay, so what I have to do now is work out what I'm going to do here and how I'm going to do it. I need to relieve a little bit to get this closer. I might just run a larger diameter end mill straight up the guts. Be the easiest way to do it, I should think. Yeah, I want to go in about 5, so I reckon if I put a 25mm diameter end mill in there and shove that up there. Oh, yeah, I think that's probably the go. Okay, so I'm going to finish out the end of the slot with using a 28mm end mill. It won't give me a V shape to match the end of the jaw, the nose of the jaw, but I think it will give a shape which gives clearance and allows the jaw to run into the 20mm piece I want left in the middle. And I'm going in at 10mm depth, so I'll try and do this in one pass. She's a pretty stiff bit, so I think we should be alright. Really not sure what the optimum speed is for an end mill this size, but we'll start with 600 and see how that looks. Well, that seems to be cutting easily enough, so I think we'll switch over to the powered in-feed. Well, that made short work of that, didn't it? I was starting to get a little bit of a chatter then. I'm not sure whether I was going too fast or I wasn't feeding hard enough. Probably I wasn't feeding hard enough. Anyway, let's see if the jaw fits, see how the jaw fits into that recess. Now, let's see what it's hitting up against. I think that's about perfect. It's actually fetched up, I think, on the end of my machining of the sides. So there's no point me going. Yeah, there's no point me going any deeper. So that'll do just fine. So my bent, I've got a note of how far in I went from that. Okay, so it's time to rotate 120 degrees and repeat for the next slot. So we'll start by putting the clamping bolt back into this spot. I think that'll hold that, so we can get ready to rotate. Now, slacken off the clamps, and we're sitting on 150. We're sitting on 155, so we've got to go around to 275. A bit more light. Okay, now I can see. Now that's 275, but I'm still going to use the dial gauge across the jaw opening to validate that I've got the alignment correct. Obviously the reason I went to all the trouble of mounting this on the rotary table is so I didn't lose the centre positioning when I did my rotations. Alright, so now I've got to remove that, get the dial gauge out, and I'll bring you back. Okay, I lost the sound here, but as you can see I've got the alignment now pretty close to spot on, certainly good enough for what I'm trying to do. Okay, so now I use my little fixture thingos to mark out the next trough, and I'll bring you back when I've done it. Okay, well that's 2 done. I've got a 3/1000 clearance each side, so it won't bind up on this, because obviously this won't go back to exactly the same place every time. It's not doweled or anything, so indeed have a little bit of clearance. Anyway, 2 down, 1 more to go. So now repeat the process, and it will cut all the way through in the second pass. So I have to stop it at that point to catch this bit so it doesn't fly off and do some damage. Right. I think the jaw will probably fit at this stage, but it might still all be too tight. That's pretty close. So by the time I've just cleaned that out a bit, I think we'll be good. Well, actually, I will give it a proper clean out because I want about 3/1000 of an inch clearance each side. So in case you're curious, I've been using a coated but solid carbide 8mm end mill for the roughing, and it's done a terrific job. And I'm using an 8mm 4 flute end mill for cleaning up the sides and trimming the cutout to the final size. Okay, so that's an easy sliding fit there. That friction's in the chuck, it's not in here. I know that because I've got 4 thou clearance this side and 2 to the other. I was aiming for 3 both sides, but I got 4 one side and 2 the other. I'm not sure exactly how that happened, but that's a good result. I'm happy with that. So all that's left to do now is the bite out of here for the nose of the jaw. Right. Oh, I think what's going on there, I've cut the relief for the front of the nose just a bit too deep, so it's actually binding on the sides, on these corners on the side, and I'm sure that can easily be fixed with a bit of a file or just wait for wear to sort it out. Alright. Well, that's the machining done, I think. Just a big clean up, deburring, and put it all back together. Okay, well I've got it all cleaned up, and as you can see, it all sort of fits together. And tolerance is a little bit tight because I only allowed a couple of 3 thou per side. You can put this on any which way around you like, it still fits. Get it lined up. But the screws only fit in when it's in one particular orientation. That one. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. It's probably because the screws aren't actually on the centre. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter to me. I sort of hoped, I suppose, that they would come out so you could do it any which way you like, but it's just slightly off, so I guess it must come down to a mistake I've made somewhere along the line. Perhaps I didn't get things properly centred at some stage. But so if I put it in to the orientation where the screws don't want to go in, yes, they'll start in the holes, but they're at an angle, so they don't want to go in. So it's very close, but yeah, no, close but no cigar, basically. Yeah, you can see, looks like that one will happily go in, but the other two are just a bit off. Anyway, like I said, it doesn't matter to me, as long as there's one position where the screws will go in. So there we have it. Okay, well, I've decided to call this video done at this point. Clearly I haven't reassembled the chuck and put it back on the machine, but you've seen that in the reverse order, so there's no magic there. And this project's taken a lot of time actually, and I've got other things that I now have to do, so this chuck's just going to have to sit and wait for a little bit. So yes, it turned out alright, perfect, no, but it'll certainly work, and I'm happy with it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe think about liking it, subscribing, all that stuff. But in any case, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.